The wrench clattered against the concrete floor with a sound like a gunshot, and Maya's heart seized in her chest. "I said," Derek repeated, stepping closer until she could smell the motor oil and stale cigarette smoke radiating from his stained coveralls. "Your card declined. Again. That's the third time this month you've waltzed in here expecting charity." Maya's fingers tightened around her purse strap, her knuckles white. "I have cash at home. I can bring it tomorrow morning, first thing. I promise. Tomorrow." Derek's laugh was ugly, sharp. "You know what? I'm tired of tomorrow. I'm tired of broke single moms thinking they can string me along with promises." He leaned against her sedan, her lifeline to the grocery store job that barely kept her and Sophie fed, and crossed his arms. "But I'm a reasonable guy. I'll make you a deal." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the empty garage. It was past 8 o'clock. The other mechanics had gone home an hour ago. Maya had known something was wrong when Derek suggested she pick up her car after closing, but she'd been desperate. Sophie needed to get to school. Maya needed to get to work. Without this car, everything fell apart. What kind of deal? The words stuck in her throat. Derek's smile made her skin crawl. "The kind where you're real nice to me, and I forget about the $473 you owe." His eyes traveled deliberately down her body and back up. "Real nice. You're a pretty woman when you're not looking so tired and worn out." The words hit her like a slap. Maya's face burned with humiliation and rage, but underneath was the cold, drowning terror of someone who'd already calculated every angle and found no escape. She'd maxed out her credit cards on Sophie's medication last month. Her mother's nursing home took everything else. There was no $473. There was barely enough for groceries. "I'm not," Maya started, forcing her voice to remain steady even as her hands trembled. "I'll file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. I'll tell everyone in town what kind of man you are." Derek pushed off from her car and took another step forward. Maya backed up until her spine hit the tool cart behind her. "And who's gonna believe you? Broke, desperate woman makes accusations against a respected businessman? I've been running this garage for 15 years. My brother's a cop." He reached out and tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. Maya flinched away, but there was nowhere to go. "Besides, you think you're the first woman who couldn't pay? Some of them were smart about it, made the practical choice." Tears of fury and helplessness pricked Maya's eyes. She wanted to scream, to run, but her car keys were in Derek's pocket, and her phone was dead in her purse, and Sophie was at home with the neighbor who could only watch her until 9 o'clock. "Hey, Derek!" The voice cut through the garage like a blade, deep, controlled, and carrying an authority that made Derek jerk backward as if yanked by a string. Maya's head snapped toward the open bay door. A man stood silhouetted against the sodium lights of the parking lot, tall and broad-shouldered in an expensive charcoal suit that looked profoundly out of place in the grimy garage. As he stepped into the light, Maya's breath caught. He was perhaps 40, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, and features that would have been handsome if not for the cold, predatory stillness in his expression. Everything about him radiated power and danger, from the perfect cut of his suit to the way he moved with absolute certainty, like a man who'd never been told no in his life and wouldn't recognize it if he was. "Mr. Volkov," Derek's voice had transformed entirely, from predatory to obsequious, in a heartbeat. "I didn't realize you were coming by tonight. Your Audi isn't scheduled for service until I was driving past." The man, Volkov, didn't look at Derek. His eyes, dark and unreadable, were fixed on Maya with an intensity that made her feel pinned in place like a butterfly on a board. "I saw the lights on. Thought I'd check on that brake issue personally." His gaze flickered to Derek, just for a moment, but something in that brief look made the mechanic go pale. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "No, sir. Just, finishing up with a customer." Derek stepped back from Maya so quickly he nearly tripped over his own feet. "She was just picking up her car." "Was she?" It wasn't a question. Volkov's attention returned to Maya, and she felt the weight of that stare like a physical thing. And is everything satisfactory with the repairs? Maya opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She should lie. She should say everything was fine, take her car and leave, figure something else out. But the humiliation was still burning in her chest, Derek's words still echoing in her ears, and something about this stranger's calm, expectant silence made the truth spill out before she could stop it. I can't pay. The words were barely a whisper. Not right now. And She couldn't repeat what Derek had suggested. The shame was too much. He wants me to. I heard what he wants. Volkov's voice remained perfectly level, but the temperature in the garage seemed to drop 10 degrees. He finally looked directly at Derek, and the mechanic actually stumbled backward another step. How much does she owe? It's not your concern, Mr. Volkov. This is between me and the lady. How much? Derek swallowed hard. $4.73. Volkov reached into his jacket. Derek flinched and withdrew a money clip. He counted out 5 crisp $100 bills without looking at them, his eyes never leaving Derek's face, and held them out. Derek stared at the money like it might bite him. Sir, you don't need to. Take it. Volkov's tone brooked no argument. And give Mrs. Maya, she whispered. Maya Peterson. And give Ms. Peterson her keys. Volkov's mouth curved into something that might have been mistaken for a smile by someone who didn't notice how it failed to reach his eyes. Unless you'd like to explain to your brother the police sergeant why you're propositioning female customers in your closed garage after hours, I'm sure he'd be fascinated. So would the local news. I happen to know several reporters who would find the story compelling. Derek's face went from pale to red and back to pale again. He snatched the money from Volkov's hand, fumbled in his pocket, and thrust Maya's keys at her. Car's ready. All set. No charge. No charge? Volkov raised an eyebrow. But I just paid you $500. The extra is for future services. Prepaid maintenance. Derek was backing toward his office now, practically tripping over his own feet. Ms. Peterson can come back any time, no charge, for oil changes and inspections, and how generous. Volkov turned to Maya, and his expression softened almost imperceptibly. Ms. Peterson, do you feel comfortable taking your vehicle tonight? Or would you like me to have one of my mechanics inspect it first? Derek's work is typically adequate, but I prefer to be thorough. Maya's mind was reeling. One of his mechanics? Who was this man? It should be fine. I just need to get home to my daughter. Something flickered across Volkov's face, surprise perhaps, or calculation. Of course. It's late. He gestured toward her sedan. I'll walk you to your car. It wasn't a request. Maya's legs felt shaky as she moved toward her vehicle, acutely aware of Volkov beside her. He moved like a big cat, she thought distantly, all controlled power and coiled danger. Behind them, Derek had vanished into his office. Maya's hands shook as she tried to unlock her car. The keys slipped from her fingers and clattered to the concrete. Before she could bend to retrieve them, Volkov had smoothly crouched and picked them up. He stood and handed them to her, and for the first time, she saw his face up close. He had scars. Faint, old ones, one cutting through his left eyebrow, another along his jaw. But his eyes were what held her. Dark brown, almost black, and looking at her with an intensity that should have terrified her, but instead made her feel seen. Truly seen, maybe for the first time in years. Thank you, she managed. I don't know how to repay you. I don't have... You don't owe me anything. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle, though that dangerous edge remained underneath like a knife in a velvet sheath. But I do need to speak with you. Not here. Not now. You need to get home to your daughter. But soon. Maya's heart hammered. Speak with me about what? Volkov pulled a card from his pocket and pressed it into her palm. My number. Call me tomorrow. There's something I need to discuss with you, and I think you'll find the conversation beneficial to both of us. I don't understand. You will. He stepped back, creating distance between them. Drive carefully, Maya. The roads are wet tonight. He knew her name. She'd only said it once. Maya clutched the card in her fist, climbed into her car, and started the engine with trembling hands. In the rearview mirror, she could see Volkov standing in the parking lot, watching her leave, a dark figure haloed by the sodium lights. She didn't look at the card until she was 3 blocks away, stopped at a red light. It was heavy stock, expensive, with raised lettering. Alexander Volkov. Private consultation and a phone number. Nothing else. No title. No company name. Maya's phone buzzed in her purse, miraculously charged enough to come back to life. A text from her neighbor. Sophie's asleep on the couch. Waited as long as I could. Had to head home. She's okay. Door's unlocked. Guilt swamped her. She pressed the accelerator harder than she should have, her mind churning. Who was Alexander Volkov? What did he want with her? The way Derek had reacted to him, the casual authority, the expensive suit, the implication that he had his own mechanics, plural, and reporters at his disposal. Maya had lived in this city her whole life. She'd heard the whispers, the rumors about certain families, certain businesses, protection rackets and politicians in pockets, and money that got laundered through legitimate fronts. She'd never paid much attention because that world existed on a different plane from her own struggles to keep Sophie fed and medicated and in school. But she wasn't naive. She knew what a man like Alexander Volkov probably was. The question was, what did a man like that want with her? Sophie was indeed asleep on the couch when Maya let herself into their tiny apartment, her daughter's face peaceful in sleep, dark lashes fanned against pale cheeks. 7 years old and so small for her age, side effect of the medication that kept her heart condition stable. Maya's heart clenched as she carefully lifted Sophie and carried her to the bedroom they shared, tucking her into the double bed and pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Love you, butterfly," Maya whispered. She didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table, barely big enough for 2 chairs, and stared at Alexander Volkov's card until the numbers seemed to burn into her retinas. By the time dawn light crept through the thin curtains, Maya had made her decision. She had to call. She had to know what he wanted. Not knowing would drive her insane, and besides, she told herself, she owed him an explanation. A proper thank you. That was all. At 7:30, after she'd gotten Sophie fed and dressed and off to school, Maya dialed the number with shaking fingers. He answered on the second ring. Alexander Volkov. His voice sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. It's Maya. Maya Peterson. From last night. Maya. The way he said her name, with that slight accent flavoring the syllables, made her stomach flip. I was hoping you'd call. Are you free for lunch today? I work until 3. Dinner then, 7 o'clock. Do you know Castellanos? Maya nearly laughed. Castellanos was the most expensive restaurant in the city. The kind of place that required reservations weeks in advance and had dress codes. I've never been there. You'll like it. The owner is a friend. I'll have a car pick you up at 6:30. Where do you live? Wait, I didn't... But even as she protested, Maya was thinking of Sophie, of the neighbor who could watch her, of the fact that she desperately needed to understand what this man wanted from her. I can meet you there. Maya. His voice was firm but not unkind. Let me send a car. You've had a difficult week. Allow me to make this one thing easier. How did he know she'd had a difficult week? Maya's instincts screamed warnings, but her exhausted, desperate pragmatism won out. Okay, fine. But I need to be home by 9:30. My daughter. 9:30. I promise. She could hear the smile in his voice. Text me your address. I'm looking forward to seeing you again, Maya. He hung up before she could respond. Maya stared at her phone for a long moment, then slowly, feeling like she was stepping off a cliff, sent him her address. The car that arrived at 6:25 that evening was a black Mercedes, with windows so tinted Maya couldn't see inside. The driver who emerged was built like a mountain, with a shaved head and a suit that strained across his shoulders. He opened the back door without a word. Maya had agonized over what to wear. Her wardrobe consisted mostly of work uniforms and worn jeans. Finally, she'd settled on the only dress she owned that wasn't from a thrift store, a simple navy sheath she'd bought for her mother's funeral 2 years ago. She'd left her hair down, applied the lipstick Sophie had given her for her last birthday, and tried not to think about what she was doing. Mrs. Chen from 3B was watching Sophie with strict instructions that Maya would be back before bedtime. Sophie had been thrilled, thinking her mother was going on a fancy date. Maya hadn't corrected her, though this was nothing like a date. She didn't know what this was. The drive to Castellanos took 20 minutes through evening traffic. The driver remained silent, but Maya caught him glancing at her in the rearview mirror several times, his expression unreadable. When they pulled up to the restaurant, all warm light and elegant stonework, he opened her door and said in heavily accented English, "Mr. Volkov is waiting for you. Table in the back." Maya's heels clicked on the marble floor as she entered. The hostess took one look at her and smiled. "Ms. Peterson? Right this way, please." How did everyone know her name? The restaurant was dimly lit, intimate, with crisp white tablecloths and fresh flowers on every table. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. Maya was acutely aware of how out of place she looked compared to the other diners in their designer clothes and expensive jewelry. Her cheeks burned as the hostess led her through the main dining room and through a doorway at the back. The private room beyond was smaller, quieter, with only one table. Alexander Volkov stood as she entered. He'd removed his suit jacket, and his shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms. His dark eyes tracked her every movement as she approached. "Maya, thank you for coming. I'm not sure I had much choice." She meant it to sound light, teasing, but it came out more honest than she'd intended. Volkov's mouth quirked. "You always have a choice. Please, sit." He held her chair for her. When was the last time anyone had done that? And then took his own seat across from her. A waiter appeared instantly, pouring wine that probably cost more than Maya made in a week. "I took the liberty of ordering for us," Volkov said. "I hope you don't mind. The chef here is exceptional, and I wanted you to experience his best work." "Mr. Volkov. Alexander, please." Maya took a breath. "Alexander, I appreciate what you did last night. More than I can express, but I need to know what you want from me. Men like you don't rescue women like me out of the goodness of their hearts." "Men like me." Alexander leaned back in his chair, studying her. "What kind of man do you think I am?" "Maya?" She met his eyes, refusing to look away despite the intensity of his gaze. "The dangerous kind. The kind who makes mechanics like Derek turn pale. The kind who has drivers and private rooms at exclusive restaurants and knows reporters and has his own mechanics. The kind of man my mother would have told me to run from. And yet you're here. And yet I'm here." Maya reached for her wine glass, more for something to do with her hands than because she wanted to drink. "Because I have a daughter who needs medication I can barely afford, and a mother in a nursing home that costs more than I make, and I'm one crisis away from losing everything. So, yes, I'm here, because I'm desperate and you know it. So please, just tell me what you want, so I can decide if I'm that desperate." Silence stretched between them. Then Alexander smiled, a real smile this time, reaching his eyes, transforming his face from coldly handsome to devastatingly attractive. "You're direct. I appreciate that. Most people spend so much time dancing around the truth." He set down his own glass. "You're right about me, Maya. I am dangerous. I'm involved in businesses that operate in the shadows, and I have power in this city that comes from sources your mother was right to fear. But I didn't bring you here to threaten you, or to ask you for anything you wouldn't want to give freely. Then why am I here? Because I want to make you an offer, one that I think will solve both of our problems." Maya's heart hammered. What problems could you possibly have that I could solve? Alexander was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider his words carefully. "I'm 42 years old. I've built an empire that requires constant vigilance and ruthlessness. I have enemies who would love nothing more than to see me vulnerable, to find a weakness they could exploit. For years, I've avoided certain entanglements because of this, but recently, circumstances have changed. The waiter appeared with the first course, something delicate and beautifully plated that Maya barely registered. He vanished as silently as he'd come. "There's a man," Alexander continued, "named Viktor Romanov. He controls the drug trade in the northern part of the city, and he's been trying to expand into my territory for the past year. I've held him off, but Viktor is persistent. And he has allies on the city council, which complicates matters. Last month, those allies passed legislation that affects several of my legitimate business interests: zoning changes, licensing restrictions, bureaucratic warfare." Maya picked up her fork, though she wasn't sure she could eat. "I don't understand what this has to do with me." Viktor has a weakness. He's old-fashioned, traditional. He believes in the sanctity of family, of marriage. He has a wife he's been with for 30 years, and he judges other men by whether they have the same stability. Alexander's eyes fixed on hers. It's one of the few areas where he considers me vulnerable, that I have no family, no heir, no woman who grounds me. He sees it as a character flaw, proof that I'm unstable, unpredictable, and he's used it to turn some of the more conservative council members against me. Understanding began to dawn, cold and impossible. "You want me to—" "I want you to marry me." The words hung in the air like a grenade. Maya stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "You want me to what?" "Marry me. Not a real marriage, not in the ways that matter. A business arrangement. You would be my wife in public, attend events at my side, provide the appearance of stability and family that would neutralize Viktor's attacks on my character. In exchange, I would take care of every financial concern you have. Your daughter's medical care, your mother's nursing home, your housing, your education, if you wanted to go back to school. All of it handled. You'd want for nothing." Maya couldn't breathe. "You're insane." "I'm practical. You need money desperately enough that you were willing to walk into Derek's garage alone after hours, despite your instincts screaming at you to run. I need a wife who won't complicate my life with emotional demands or expectations of romance. We can help each other." "Why me?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "You could have anyone. Someone from your world. Someone who knows how to navigate. I don't want someone from my world." Alexander leaned forward. "I want someone real. Someone who won't pretend to love me, or expect me to pretend to love them. Someone who understands this is a transaction and will honor the terms. When I saw you in that garage last night, defending yourself against Derek even though you were terrified, refusing to give in even when you had no options left, I saw courage, strength, integrity. Those are rare qualities in my world, Maya. And when I saw you with your daughter this morning," Maya's blood ran cold. "You were watching me? I had someone watch you, to make sure you were who I thought you were, to make sure you were safe." Alexander didn't look remotely apologetic. "I saw a mother who loves her child more than her own comfort, who walks her to school holding her hand and singing with her even though you're exhausted, who waves until she's inside the building and then stands there for another minute as if you can't bear to leave. That kind of love it's something I understand, something I respect." Maya's hands were shaking. She set down her fork before she dropped it. "This is insane. You don't even know me." "I know enough, and you'll get to know me." "I'm not asking you to decide tonight, Maya. I'm asking you to consider it. Think about what your life could be. No more fear about whether you can afford Sophie's medication. No more humiliating situations with men like Derek. No more lying awake at night doing math in your head, trying to figure out which bill to pay late. You could give your daughter a real childhood, private school, tutors, the best medical care in the country. You could visit your mother without counting every minute against your hourly wage." He made it sound so simple, so seductive. Maya's mind reeled with the impossibility of it all. And what would you get? Really? Legitimacy. Stability in Victor's eyes, which translates to political power. An end to the bureaucratic warfare that's costing me time and money I'd rather spend on more productive pursuits. Alexander paused. And perhaps, if I'm being entirely honest, the pleasure of your company. You interest me, Maya. You're not like the women I usually encounter. How long would this arrangement last? 2 years. Long enough to be convincing, to achieve my goals. After that, we divorce amicably. You'd receive a settlement, enough to live on comfortably for the rest of your life. You could go anywhere, do anything. Your daughter would be provided for through college and beyond. 2 years. Maya's mind spun. 2 years of pretending to be married to a man she didn't know, a man who was clearly involved in organized crime, a man who had admitted he was dangerous. 2 years of living in his world, attending his events, playing a role. But 2 years of Sophie having everything she needed. 2 years of security. And after that, freedom. I need time, Maya heard herself say. I can't decide something this enormous right now. Of course. Take a week. Here, Alexander pulled out his phone and handed it to her. Put in your number. I'll call you in 7 days. And in the meantime, think about it. Really think about what you want your life to look like. Maya's fingers trembled as she entered her contact information. The rational part of her brain was screaming that this was madness, that she should run, that nothing good could come from entangling herself with a man like Alexander Volkov. But the exhausted, desperate part, the part that had been drowning for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe, that part was already imagining it. Sophie in a good school. Her mother in a better facility with nurses who remembered to check on her. Herself in a bed of her own, in a home that didn't leak when it rained. Never again having to smile at men like Derek while her skin crawled. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. The food was extraordinary, but Maya barely tasted it. Alexander didn't press her, instead shifting the conversation to lighter topics. Books they'd read, places they'd traveled or wanted to travel. Small pieces of themselves offered carefully, like opening moves in a chess game. By the time the car returned her home at 9:20, Alexander had kept his promise about the time. Maya felt like she'd been through a hurricane. Mrs. Chen reported that Sophie had been perfect, and Maya paid her with the last $20 bill in her wallet, then checked on her sleeping daughter. Sophie looked so peaceful, so small in the dim glow of the nightlight. Maya brushed hair from her forehead and thought about the choice she was facing. A business arrangement. A marriage that wasn't really a marriage. 2 years of her life in exchange for security and a chance at a real future. When she finally climbed into bed beside her daughter, Maya knew she was already past the point of saying no. The week that followed felt surreal. Maya went through the motions of her life, work, caring for Sophie, visiting her mother, while her mind churned endlessly. She researched Alexander Volkov online and found surprisingly little. A few business registrations, ownership of several commercial properties, photographs from charity events always in the background, never the focus. Nothing concrete about his illegal activities, but the absence of information was almost more telling than evidence would have been. She almost called him a dozen times. To say yes, to say no, to ask more questions. But she waited, because he'd given her a week, and she wanted to use all of it, wanted to be certain. On the 6th day, Derek called her. "Your car's making a weird noise again," he said, his voice falsely cheerful. "You should bring it in. Free maintenance, remember? I'll take real good care of you." Maya's stomach turned. "I don't think—" "Tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock. Don't be late." He hung up before she could refuse. Maya stared at her phone, her heart racing. The memory of Derek looming over her, his hands reaching for her, his ugly proposition. It all came flooding back. She thought about calling the police, but what would she say? He'd threatened her, insisted she bring in her car for service. She could refuse to go. But Derek knew where she lived, knew where she worked. And her car did sound strange. She'd noticed the noise, too. If something was seriously wrong and she ignored it, the repair would cost far more than she had. Maya closed her eyes and made her decision. She called Alexander. He answered immediately. "Maya, I wasn't expecting to hear from you until tomorrow. Something's happened." The words tumbled out, Derek's call, the veiled threat in his voice, her fear of going back to that garage. "I don't know what to do." Silence. Then, "You're not going anywhere near that garage. I'll send someone to pick up your car and have it serviced properly. But Maya, this is exactly the kind of thing that wouldn't happen if you accepted my offer. Men like Derek wouldn't dare approach you. You'd be untouchable." "Is that a manipulation tactic?" "It's the truth." His voice was gentle, but firm. "I won't lie to you, Maya. Not about this. If you were my wife, even in name only, you would be under my protection. Completely. No one would threaten you or your daughter. Ever." Maya's hands were shaking. "I want to say yes. God help me, I want to say yes. But I'm terrified. Of me. Of all of it. Of your world. Of what I'd be getting into. Of losing myself in a role I'm playing." She took a shaky breath. "And yes, a little bit of you. Because you are dangerous, Alexander. I'm not stupid enough to forget that." "Good. Being afraid of me is smart. But I want you to understand something, Maya. I would never hurt you. Not physically, not emotionally, not in any way. You would be my wife. That makes you sacred. There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent heat through her veins. Maya pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heart hammer. "If I do this, I need rules, boundaries. I need to know exactly what I'm agreeing to. Come to my home tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We'll discuss everything. Draw up a contract if you want. Make this as official and clear as possible. And Maya, bring Sophie." "What? No, I'm not bringing my daughter to—" "If you're going to consider this seriously, she needs to be part of the decision. Not the details, but she needs to meet me. To know who I am. Because this affects her life, too." He paused. "I won't be a father to her, Maya. That's not what this arrangement is about. But I will keep her safe and provide for her, and she deserves to at least see the man who will be in her mother's life for the next 2 years. Maya's throat tightened. He was right. Damn him, he was right. "Okay, tomorrow at 6. Where?" He gave her an address in the Heights, the most expensive neighborhood in the city, where old money lived behind gates and hedges. Of course he lived there. "There's a gate," Alexander said. "Tell the guard you're expected. He'll let you through. And Maya, thank you for trusting me with this." After she hung up, Maya sat for a long time staring at nothing. Then she went to Sophie's room, where her daughter was arranging her small collection of dolls in elaborate scenarios. "Butterfly? Can I talk to you about something?" Sophie looked up with those huge dark eyes, so like Maya's own, and patted the bed beside her. Maya sat and tried to figure out how to explain the inexplicable to a 7-year-old. What if Mom had a chance to make things easier for us? To make sure you always had your medicine and could go to a really good school and we could live somewhere nicer? Sophie tilted her head. Like winning the lottery? Sort of, but it would mean some changes. Mom might get married. Sophie's eyes went wide. To who? Do you have a boyfriend? You never said you had a boyfriend. I don't. This would be different. More like a business decision. But he's a nice man, and he wants to help us. And I need you to meet him first, before I decide anything. Okay? Sophie processed this with the seriousness only a child could muster. Is he mean? No, baby, he's not mean. Does he know about my heart? Yes. And he wants to make sure you have the best doctors. Sophie seemed to consider this. Then she threw her arms around Maya's neck. I just want you to be happy, Mommy. You're always so tired and sad. If this man makes you happy, then I want you to marry him. Maya hugged her daughter tight, tears stinging her eyes. Happy. When was the last time she'd even thought about happiness? It seemed like a luxury for other people, something far beyond the simple goal of survival she'd been chasing for years. But maybe, this was a path to something more than just surviving. Alexander's home was a revelation. The gate opened onto a winding drive through manicured grounds, and the house itself was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, all clean lines and elegant simplicity. Maya pulled her battered sedan up the circular drive, acutely conscious of how out of place it looked. Alexander was waiting at the front door. He'd dressed down, jeans and a black sweater, but somehow still looked expensively put together. His eyes went to Sophie immediately, and his expression softened. "You must be Sophie." He crouched down to her level. "I'm Alexander. Your mom told me a lot about you." Sophie, who was usually shy with strangers, studied him gravely. "You live in a really big house." "I do. Would you like to see it? I have a library with some books that might interest you, and a cook who makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the city. Can Mom come too? Of course, your mom is the whole reason you're here." Sophie slipped her hand into Maya's, and together they followed Alexander into his home. The interior was as stunning as the exterior: high ceilings, art on the walls that Maya suspected was original, and probably cost more than she'd made in her entire life, furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine, but there were also small touches that surprised her. Books everywhere, worn and clearly read. A pair of running shoes by the door. A coffee mug on the kitchen counter with a faint lipstick stain. No, Maya looked closer and realized it was just a coffee ring. But it was somehow humanizing to see that Alexander Volkov didn't have staff cleaning up after him every second. The cook, a grandmotherly woman named Rosa, appeared with promised cookies and milk for Sophie, then whisked her away to the library, leaving Maya alone with Alexander in his living room. "She's beautiful," Alexander said quietly. "She looks like you." Maya's heart squeezed. "She's everything good about me and nothing bad." "I doubt that's true." He gestured to the sofa. "Sit. Please, let's talk about this properly." For the next hour, they negotiated the terms of their arrangement with a businesslike precision that should have felt cold, but instead felt respectful. Alexander was clear about his expectations: public appearances at his side, perhaps 3 or 4 events per month. Maintaining the fiction of their marriage to his associates and rivals. Living in his home, or at least maintaining a bedroom here for appearances' sake, though he offered to set her up in a separate residence if she preferred. "The same house is better," Maya found herself saying. "More convincing, but separate bedrooms." "Of course, I would never presume otherwise." Alexander's eyes were serious. "Maya, I want to be very clear about this. I won't touch you. Not beyond what's necessary for appearances. Holding your hand at events, perhaps an arm around your waist for photographs. Nothing more. Your physical autonomy is absolute. And if someone asks why we're not more demonstrative, then we're private people who don't believe in public displays. It's believable enough." He paused. "Though I should warn you, there will be some speculation. Some of my rivals will try to suggest our marriage is a sham. We'll need to be convincing." "How convincing?" Alexander met her eyes steadily. "Convincing enough that we're clearly committed to each other, that we present as a unit, but not so demonstrative that you're uncomfortable. We'll figure out what works." They discussed finances next. Alexander was almost shockingly generous. A stipend for her personal expenses, all of Sophie's medical costs covered, her mother moved to the best care facility in the state, college funds established. And at the end of 2 years, a settlement of $2 million. Maya's head spun at the numbers. "That's too much." "It's fair compensation for 2 years of your life, and the risk you're taking in associating with me. Because there is risk, Maya. I won't lie about that. My world is dangerous. There's a reason I have guards, security systems, careful routines. Most of that danger won't touch you. I'll make sure of it. But you need to understand what you're walking into. Tell me the worst-case scenario." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "The worst case is that someone tries to hurt you or Sophie to get to me." It's unlikely. It would be a declaration of war, and most of my rivals aren't that stupid. But it's possible. If you agree to this, you'll have bodyguards. So will Sophie. Your movements will be monitored for your own safety. It will feel invasive at first. And the best case? The best case is that this works exactly as planned. Victor and his allies back down. My businesses stabilize. You and Sophie live comfortably for 2 years, and then you walk away with enough money to start whatever life you want. Maya closed her eyes. I must be out of my mind. Probably, she heard the smile in his voice. But is that a yes? Was it? Maya thought about Derek and the garage, about counting pennies for groceries, about the constant grinding stress of trying to keep her head above water while the waves kept crashing over her. She thought about Sophie asking if this man would make Maya happy. She thought about the way Alexander had looked at her daughter with genuine warmth, the respect he'd shown in letting Maya set every boundary, the way he'd been utterly honest about the risks. Yes. The word came out stronger than she expected. Yes, it's a yes. But I want a contract. Something in writing that protects both of us. I'll have my lawyer draw something up. We can review it together, make whatever changes you need. Alexander stood and extended his hand. Partners? Maya stood too and took his hand. His grip was warm, firm, confident. Partners. From the library, Sophie's laughter rang out, bright and carefree in a way Maya hadn't heard in months. Alexander glanced toward the sound and smiled. She's happy here. Don't. Maya pulled her hand back. Don't do that. Don't make this about her happiness. This is a business arrangement. I'm doing this for practical reasons, not because I think you're going to be some kind of father figure or savior. Fair enough. Alexander's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or appreciation for her directness. When do you want to do this? The marriage, I mean. As soon as possible, before I lose my nerve. City Hall, 3 days from now. Quiet, just us and witnesses. Then we'll hold a small reception next week to make the announcement to relevant parties. He caught her expression and added, Nothing overwhelming. Dinner at a restaurant, maybe 30 people. Colleagues and associates. You'll need a dress. I'll have someone arrange it. I can buy my own dress. Maya. His voice was gentle but firm. You're about to become my wife. Let me buy you the dress. It's not charity. It's part of the image we're creating. You'll be expected to look a certain way at these events. Designer clothes, jewelry, the works. Think of it as a costume for the role you're playing. He was right, and Maya knew it, but it still grated against her pride to accept. Finally, she nodded. Fine, but nothing too revealing or uncomfortable. I'll make sure of it. Alexander checked his watch. It's getting late. Let me have one of my drivers take you home. Your car is still at that garage, correct? I'll have it picked up tonight and fully serviced by actual competent mechanics and delivered to you tomorrow. And Derek? Something cold and dangerous flashed across Alexander's face. Derek won't be a problem. Not anymore. You have my word on that. Maya didn't ask what that meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. 3 days later, Maya became Maya Volkov in a ceremony that lasted 15 minutes. She wore a simple, cream-colored dress that Alexander had sent to her apartment, and she held a bouquet of white roses that Rosa had pressed into her hands that morning. Alexander wore a dark suit and looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read when she spoke her vows. Sophie stood beside her as her maid of honor, beaming with excitement at the adventure of it all. Alexander's lawyer and Rosa served as witnesses, and just like that, with a signature on a marriage certificate and a chaste kiss that lasted barely a second, Maya's life changed completely. They moved into Alexander's house that evening. Sophie was thrilled with her new bedroom, huge and painted soft purple with a window seat overlooking the gardens. Maya's room was connected to Sophie's by a shared bathroom, with Alexander's suite on the opposite end of the hall. Privacy and proximity, carefully balanced. The first week was an adjustment. Maya kept expecting to wake up and discover it had all been a fever dream. But every morning she woke in Egyptian cotton sheets in a room bigger than her entire former apartment. Sophie went to a new private school where the teacher-to-student ratio was 5-1, and they had art classes and music classes, and a library that looked like something from a castle. Maya's mother was moved to Willowbrook Manor, the kind of care facility Maya had only dreamed about, with attentive nurses and therapy programs and gardens for residents to enjoy. And through it all, Alexander was unfailingly courteous and respectful. He ate breakfast with them most mornings, asked Sophie about school, discussed Maya's day with genuine interest. He never pushed for more than she offered, never made her feel like she owed him anything beyond what they'd agreed upon. But Maya found herself noticing things. The way he moved through the house in the early mornings, already dressed for the gym. The slight accent that thickened when he was on the phone speaking what she assumed was Russian. The scars she'd glimpsed that first night and the stories they might tell. The way his face would go cold and hard when he was dealing with business, and then soften when Sophie ran up to show him a drawing she'd made. He was dangerous. She never forgot that. But he was also more than she'd expected. The reception dinner was held at Castellanos, in a private room that could accommodate 40 people, though only 32 attended. Maya wore a midnight blue gown that hugged her figure and made her feel like someone else entirely. Someone sophisticated and polished. Someone who belonged at Alexander Volkov's side. Alexander introduced her to a parade of men and a few women whose names she forgot immediately. Too overwhelmed by the weight of their gazes and the way they assessed her. This was Viktor Romanov, a thick, older man with cold eyes who kissed Maya's hand and told her she was lovely in a way that made her skin crawl. That was Councilman Morrison, who controlled zoning in the commercial district. That was the chief of police, who laughed at Alexander's jokes and clapped him on the shoulder like an old friend. Maya smiled and made small talk, and let Alexander's hand rest possessively on the small of her back, and she understood with crystalline clarity exactly what kind of world she'd married into. "You're doing beautifully," Alexander murmured during a lull in conversation, his breath warm against her ear. "Victor is seething. He can't find any angle to attack." "He scares me," Maya admitted quietly. "He should." "But he won't touch you. You're under my protection now." Alexander's hand tightened slightly on her waist, and that's not a privilege he'll risk violating. Later, after dinner but before dessert, Victor approached them at their table. Up close, he was even more intimidating, radiating a casual brutality that Alexander kept hidden under layers of expensive clothes and polished manners. "Congratulations on your marriage," Victor said, his accent thicker than Alexander's. "Very sudden, no? We hadn't heard you were even seeing anyone." "When you know, you know." Alexander's tone was light, but Maya felt the tension in his body. Maya swept me off my feet. I wasn't about to let her slip away. Victor's eyes crawled over Maya in a way that made her feel naked. "She's very young." "I'm 32, Maya said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "Not that young." "And you have a child?" "A daughter, Sophie. She's 7. Alexander, playing stepfather. Never thought I'd see the day." Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I hope you know what you're getting into, Mrs. Volkov. Your husband's business can be demanding." "I'm sure I'll manage." Maya met his gaze without flinching, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. "I'm tougher than I look." Something flickered across Victor's face. Surprise, maybe, or a grudging respect. "We'll see." He turned back to Alexander. "We should talk, next week, about the situation on Riverside. Call my office. Set up a meeting." After Victor walked away, Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Alexander's thumb traced small circles on her waist, comforting, grounding. "You handled that perfectly. I thought I was going to throw up. You didn't show it. That's what matters." He leaned closer, his voice pitched for her ears only. "You're stronger than you think, Maya. Victor saw it too. That's good. It means he'll take you seriously." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, and careful conversations. By the time Alexander's driver took them home, Rosa had stayed with Sophie, and Maya had called 3 times to check in. Maya was exhausted down to her bones. She kicked off her heels in the foyer with a groan of relief. Alexander loosened his tie and shrugged out of his jacket, and for a moment they stood there in comfortable silence. "Thank you," Alexander said finally, "for tonight, for all of this. You were remarkable." Maya laughed tiredly. "I was terrified the entire time." "Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and doing it anyway." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that had become almost familiar. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's Saturday. We can sleep in, have a quiet day." But before Maya could head upstairs, the front door burst open. 2 men entered. Guards, Maya realized, recognizing them from their posts around the property, supporting a 3rd man between them who was bleeding from his head and barely conscious. Alexander's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The polished businessman vanished, replaced by someone cold and lethal. "What happened?" "Ambush at the warehouse on 5th, one of the guards said tersely. "Romanov's guys. Marcus took a bullet, grazed his skull, but he's okay. We got him out, but they torched the building." Maya's breath caught. Violence. Real violence. Not the implied danger Alexander had warned her about, but actual blood and bullets and, "Get him to the safe room. Call Dr. Chen." Alexander's voice was clipped, commanding. "Double the security on the house. I want men on every entrance until I say otherwise." Only then did he look at Maya. She was frozen by the stairs, her hand gripping the banister. His expression softened fractionally. "Go check on Sophie. Lock your doors. Rosa knows the protocols. She'll stay with you." "What are you going to do?" "What I have to." He started toward the room where his guards had taken the injured man, then paused. "I'm sorry you had to see this, Maya. I hoped we'd have more time before my world intruded this way." "Is this because of tonight? Because of Victor?" "This is because Victor is testing me, seeing if marriage has made me soft." Alexander's smile was sharp and cold, and utterly without humor. He's about to learn otherwise. Maya should have been terrified. She should have run upstairs, locked herself in her room with Sophie, and started reconsidering every choice that had led to this moment. But instead, she found herself walking toward Alexander. "What can I do to help?" He stared at her. "Maya, I'm your wife. Even if it's just for show, that means I'm on your side. So what can I do?" For a long moment, Alexander simply looked at her. Then he cupped her face in both hands, his touch gentle despite the violence simmering in his eyes. "Keep Sophie safe. Keep yourself safe. That's all I need from you right now. And after? After, I'm going to remind Victor why people fear me, and you're going to stay here where it's secure until I say otherwise. Can you do that?" Maya nodded. Alexander's thumb brushed across her cheek, tender, possessive. And then he was striding away, barking orders into his phone, transforming into someone Maya barely recognized. She stood there for a moment, her heart racing, and then did as he'd asked. She went upstairs, checked on Sophie, still sleeping peacefully, oblivious, and locked them in their rooms. Rosa appeared minutes later, calm and efficient, sitting in the chair beside Sophie's bed with a book and a cup of tea, as if this was all perfectly normal. Maybe for her it was. Maya tried to sleep, but couldn't. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of men moving through the house, cars coming and going, voices speaking in terse, urgent tones. This was Alexander's real world, the world he'd warned her about. Around 3 a.m, she heard his footsteps in the hall. They paused outside her door. Maya held her breath, waiting for a knock that never came. Finally, the footsteps moved on to his own room. In the morning, there was blood in the front entry that someone was mopping up. Alexander appeared at breakfast looking like he hadn't slept, but he smiled when Sophie bounced into the kitchen chattering about a dream she'd had. "Can we go to the park today?" Sophie asked hopefully. Not today, Butterfly. Alexander's voice was gentle but firm. I need you and your mom to stay close to home. Maybe tomorrow. Why not? Sophie's lower lip jutted out. Because I said so. The words would have sounded harsh from anyone else, but Alexander delivered them with a warmth that took the sting out. Tell you what, how about we have a movie day instead? We can watch anything you want and Rosa will make her special popcorn. Sophie considered this. With butter? So much butter, it's probably a health hazard. Okay. Crisis averted, Sophie ran off to pick out movies. Maya waited until she was gone, then said quietly, Is it over? The thing with Victor? For now. We came to an understanding last night. Alexander's eyes were dark, haunted. I'm sorry, Maya. This wasn't supposed to happen so soon. You and Sophie were supposed to be insulated from all of this. But we're not. We can't be, because we're part of your life now, even if it's just pretend. It's not, Alexander cut himself off, looking frustrated. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Be honest with me. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. Last night, after I saw that my man was injured, after I realized Victor was willing to escalate this way, all I could think about was you and Sophie upstairs. What if his men had come here instead of the warehouse? What if you'd been hurt because I'd brought you into this? But we weren't hurt. Your security kept us safe. This time. But next time, he shook his head. I thought I could keep you separate from the dangerous parts of my life. I'm starting to realize that may not be possible. Maya reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. It was the first time she'd initiated touch between them. Then we deal with it together. That was the deal, wasn't it? Partners. Alexander turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. His grip was warm and strong, and made her feel anchored in a way she hadn't expected. You're not what I expected, Maya Volkov. Is that good or bad? He seemed to struggle for words. It's complicated. They sat there for a moment, hands intertwined across the breakfast table, and Maya realized with a jolt that this didn't feel like a business arrangement anymore. It felt like something real. The next 6 months passed in a strange combination of normal and surreal. Maya settled into a routine at Alexander's house. Their house, she was slowly learning to think of it. Sophie thrived at her new school, making friends and bringing home art projects and glowing report cards. Maya's mother improved dramatically at Willowbrook Manor, recognizing her daughter more often, and even remembering Sophie's name consistently for the first time in years. And Maya found herself spending more and more time with Alexander. It started practically. He taught her about his legitimate businesses so she could speak intelligently at events. The restaurant franchise, the real estate holdings, the property management company. But their discussions expanded to other topics. Books they'd read, movies they loved. The cities Alexander had lived in before settling here. The childhood memories Maya rarely shared with anyone. He was careful never to cross the physical boundaries they'd established, but his eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. And Maya caught herself watching him too, the way he moved through the house, the rare, genuine smile he gave Sophie when she showed him her schoolwork, the way his voice softened when he talked about his sister who'd died young, the reason he'd first gotten involved in the criminal enterprises that now defined his life. They attended events together every few weeks. Maya learned to navigate the dangerous social waters of Alexander's world, to smile and deflect, and never show weakness. She learned which people were trustworthy, or at least less treacherous than others, and which ones watched her with calculating eyes, looking for cracks in the facade. Victor Romanov remained a constant presence, hovering at the edges of their lives, but the open hostility from that first dinner had shifted to a grudging detente. Alexander's marriage had achieved exactly what he'd hoped. It had given him legitimacy, stability, a persona that was harder to attack. But Maya was starting to realize that what Alexander had gained from their arrangement, she'd gained something far more complicated. She was falling for him. Not the dangerous crime boss persona he showed the world. Not even the protective, generous benefactor who'd rescued her from Derek's garage. But the man underneath all of that. The one who read poetry when he couldn't sleep. Who taught Sophie chess with infinite patience. Who asked Maya's opinion on business decisions with genuine interest in her perspective. It terrified her. This wasn't supposed to be real. This was a transaction, a business deal, 2 years, and then she walked away with her settlement and her freedom. But somewhere along the line, her heart had stopped listening to logic. It all came to a head on a Tuesday night in late May. Maya was in the library reading when Alexander came home from a meeting. She heard him moving through the house, his footsteps heavy, and something in the sound made her set aside her book and go looking for him. She found him in his study, standing at the window overlooking the darkened gardens, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He didn't turn when she entered, but he said, "You should be asleep." "So should you." Maya closed the door behind her. "What happened?" "Victor is pushing again. Different angle this time. He's trying to buy city council votes to get my casino project shut down. It would cost me millions, and more importantly, it would make me look weak." He took a long swallow of his drink. "I'm handling it." "How?" "Ways you don't need to know about." Finally, he turned to look at her. His expression was haggard, older than his years. "Ways you shouldn't be associated with." "I'm already associated with them. I knew what I was signing up for." "Did you? Because I'm starting to think I didn't give you the full picture." Alexander set down his glass and crossed to her. "Victor made a comment tonight. About you. About Sophie. Nothing explicit, nothing actionable, but the implication was clear. That if I didn't back off, he might find ways to apply pressure through my family." Maya's blood ran cold. "He threatened Sophie?" "He hinted, which is almost worse because it gives me nothing concrete to respond to." Alexander's hands clenched into fists. "I've spent all evening thinking about how to handle this, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion." "Which is?" "That I need to end this, the arrangement between us. I need to divorce you, publicly and cleanly, before Victor decides to escalate." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. "What?" "No, we had a deal." "The deal was that I would keep you safe. I can't do that anymore, not when you're this visible, this connected to me. Victor is right about one thing. You're my weakness now, you and Sophie both." His voice was rough with emotion. "I can't protect you if you're here, Maya. I won't risk you. That's not your decision to make." Maya stepped forward, her hands on his chest. "I'm not leaving. Sophie's finally happy. My mother is getting real care. She stopped herself before she said something she couldn't take back. "You're what?" Alexander's hands came up to cover hers, holding them against his heart. "Finish that sentence, Maya." "I'm happy," she whispered. "For the first time in years, I'm actually happy. And it's not because of the money or the house or the security. It's because of you." Alexander closed his eyes. "Don't say that." "Why not? Because it makes this complicated?" "It's already complicated, Alexander. I think about you constantly. I look forward to seeing you every day. When you come home at night, I listen for your footsteps, and I don't breathe easy until I know you're safe. That's not a business arrangement anymore." "Maya, and I think maybe you feel the same way." Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. "I see how you look at me, the way you find reasons to be near me, the way you check on Sophie at night, even though you pretend you don't." "This stopped being fake a long time ago, didn't it?" Alexander's hands tightened on hers. "It doesn't matter what I feel. What matters is keeping you safe. Then keep me safe here, with you. Don't push me away because you're scared." "I'm not—" He stopped, laughed bitterly. "I'm absolutely terrified. You were supposed to be a shield, Maya, a way to protect myself. Instead, you've become the thing I'm most afraid of losing." Maya's heart was racing so hard she could barely breathe. "Then don't lose me. Fight for this. For us." "There is no us. This was supposed to be temporary." Then make it permanent. The words burst out of her before she could stop them. Make this real, Alexander. Not for Victor or politics or business, but because you want to. Because I want to. For a moment, Alexander just stared at her. Then he pulled her hands away from his chest and stepped back, putting distance between them. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking you to let yourself be happy, to stop punishing yourself for whatever happened in your past, and allow yourself to have something good. Maya's voice broke. I'm asking you to love me the way I love you. The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander's face had gone pale, his expression stunned. You love me? Yes. God help me. Yes. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now. I love you. And I think you love me too, but you're too scared to admit it. Alexander's carefully maintained control cracked. I can't, Maya. Love is a weakness. It's a vulnerability that my enemies will exploit. If Victor knew how I really felt about you, he would use it to destroy me. So you'll destroy us first? That's your solution? It's the only way to keep you safe. I don't want to be safe if it means losing you. Maya was shouting now, all her emotions pouring out in a flood she couldn't control. I was surviving before you, just barely, but surviving. And now I know what it's like to actually live, to feel things, to want more than just making it through another day. You gave me that. You and this crazy, impossible arrangement that was never supposed to mean anything. And now you want to take it all away because you're afraid? Alexander looked like she'd struck him. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection from you. I need you to fight for us. I need you to be brave enough to admit that this is real. And if I do, his voice was raw. If I admit that every moment with you has become precious to me, that I lie awake at night thinking about you in the next room, that seeing you with Sophie makes me want things I've never let myself want. Family, stability, a future that's more than just survival and power plays. If I admit all of that, what changes? Victor still wants to destroy me. My enemies will still target you. Loving you doesn't make you safer, Maya. It makes you a target. Then we face it together. Maya closed the distance between them again, reaching up to cup his face. I'm not asking for safe, Alexander. I'm asking for real. All of it, the danger and the complications and the messy, terrifying reality of caring about someone. I'm asking you to choose me. Choose us. Alexander's hands came up to cover hers, and this time, when he looked at her, his eyes were blazing with everything he'd been holding back. You have no idea what you're asking me to risk. Yes, I do. You think I don't understand what it means to be with you? To really be with you? Maya's voice gentled. I see you, Alexander. All of you. Not just the parts you show the world. And I'm not scared. Or I am. But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of anything else. Maya. His voice was a whisper. If I let myself do this, if I let myself love you the way I want to, there's no going back. It won't be a 2-year arrangement anymore. It will be forever. Promise? That broke him. Alexander pulled her into his arms and kissed her with a desperation that stole her breath. It was nothing like their chaste wedding kiss, nothing like the careful, distant touches they'd maintained for months. This was everything. Need and fear and love, all tangled together. Months of restraint shattering in an instant. Maya kissed him back with equal intensity, her fingers tangling in his hair, trying to convey everything she felt in the press of her lips against his. This was real. This was what she wanted. This was... Marry me. Alexander pulled back just enough to speak, his forehead pressed to hers. Really marry me. Not a business arrangement, not a temporary fix. Marry me because you love me, and I love you, and I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. Maya laughed through her tears. We're already married, you idiot. That doesn't count. That was a transaction. He cupped her face in both hands, his eyes intense. I'm asking you to be my wife. Really be my wife. to build a life with me, raise Sophie together, face whatever comes knowing we have each other. I'm asking you to take the terrifying, irrational risk of loving me, despite everything that's wrong with my life and my choices. Yes. The word came out without hesitation. Yes to all of it. Yes to forever. Yes to the terrifying, irrational risk. She kissed him again, softer this time. Yes to you, Alexander. Always yes to you. His arms tightened around her, and Maya felt the tension drain from his body. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They stood there in his study, wrapped in each other's arms, and Maya felt the last piece of her carefully constructed walls crumble. This was what she'd been missing all those years, not just security or comfort, but this overwhelming sense of rightness, of coming home. We still have Victor to deal with, Alexander murmured against her hair, and all the other complications. We'll figure it out, together. Maya pulled back to look at him. That's what partners do. Is that what we are? Partners? Partners, husband and wife, best friends eventually, I hope, she smiled. And apparently crazy people who fall in love during fake marriage arrangements. Alexander laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his face. When you put it that way, it sounds absurd. It is absurd. It's the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me. Maya's smile widened, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it. He kissed her again, slow and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, he kept her close, his arms a secure circle around her waist. I need to tell Sophie, Maya said suddenly. She deserves to know this is real now, that you're not just temporary. She already knows. At Maya's confused look, Alexander smiled sheepishly. She told me last week that she was glad I married you for real, not just for pretend. I tried to explain the arrangement, but she just looked at me like I was being deliberately dense and said that grown-ups were silly about love. Maya laughed. She's not wrong. No, she's not. Alexander brushed a strand of hair from her face. She also asked if she could call me Dad. I didn't know what to say. What did you tell her? I said I'd be honored, but she should check with you first. His expression turned vulnerable. Maya, I know I'm not her father. I would never try to replace him, or her father left before she was born. He wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, and when I refused, he vanished completely. Maya's voice was steady despite the old pain. Sophie has never had a father. If she wants to call you Dad, and you're okay with it, then I'm okay with it too. Alexander pulled her close again, his face buried in her hair. I love her. I didn't expect to, but I do. She's funny and brave and so damn smart. And she's yours, which makes her mine now too. Ours, Maya corrected. She's ours. Ours. He repeated the word like a prayer. God, Maya, I want this. I want the whole impossible thing, you and Sophie, and a real family. I want to come home every night knowing you'll be here. I want to teach her to drive when she's older and threaten any boys who look at her wrong. I want to grow old with you and argue about whose turn it is to take out the trash and watch Sophie graduate from college. All of it. Everything. Then let's do it. Let's stop pretending this is temporary and commit to the scary, messy, wonderful reality of it. They sealed it with another kiss, and this time, when they broke apart, Alexander led her to the couch. They sat close together, his arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest, and talked until dawn broke over the gardens. About their pasts, their fears, their hopes for the future. About how they would handle Victor, together. About how they would navigate the dangerous waters of Alexander's world, with Sophie's safety as their top priority. And about how, despite everything, they'd found something neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. Love. Real, complicated, sometimes inconvenient, absolutely terrifying love. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of a room full of Alexander's associates, Victor Romanoff included, at a restaurant where Alexander had reserved the entire venue. Her hand was clasped firmly in Alexander's, his thumb tracing reassuring circles on her skin. "I called you all here tonight," Alexander said, his voice carrying across the room, "because I want to make something clear. 6 months ago, I married Maya primarily for business reasons. To project stability, to strengthen my position, to address concerns about my character." Victor leaned forward, scenting blood in the water. Several other men looked interested, calculating. "But somewhere along the way," Alexander continued, "something changed. This woman." He looked at Maya with such open love that her breath caught. "This remarkable, brave, brilliant woman became everything to me. My wife, my partner, my future. And I need everyone in this room to understand that she's not a business arrangement anymore. She's the most important thing in my life, and anyone who threatens her or her daughter threatens me directly." He turned to face Victor. "So, let me be absolutely clear. If you come after my family, if you so much as look at them wrong, I will burn your empire to the ground. I will destroy everything you've built, ruin everyone you care about, and ensure that your name becomes a cautionary tale. There will be no negotiations, no compromises, no mercy." The room was utterly silent. "That's quite a declaration," Victor said finally, his face unreadable. "Some might call it foolish to announce such a weakness publicly." "It's not a weakness." Maya's voice rang clear and strong. "It's strength. Alexander is powerful on his own, but together, we're unstoppable. I won't be used as leverage against him because I won't be a victim. Try to threaten me, and you'll discover exactly how dangerous a mother can be when protecting her family." She met Victor's eyes without flinching. "I'm not just Alexander's wife. I'm his partner, and I'm done pretending to be harmless or invisible. If you want war, we'll give you war, but I promise you, we'll win." Victor stared at her for a long moment, then slowly began to clap. Others joined in, and Maya realized with shock that they weren't mocking. They were genuinely impressed. "Well," Victor said, a grudging smile on his face, "perhaps you've chosen more wisely than I thought, Alexander. Your wife has spine." "She has more than that." Alexander pulled Maya close and kissed her temple. "She has my heart, and my loyalty, and my protection, for as long as I draw breath." After the announcement, as guests mingled and ate and drank, Maya found herself cornered by Victor near the bar. "You were very brave tonight," he said conversationally. "Or very foolish. I haven't decided which. Maybe both." Maya accepted a glass of wine from the bartender, but I meant every word. "I believe you did." Victor studied her appraisingly. "I've underestimated Alexander. I thought marriage would make him soft, distracted. Instead, it's made him more dangerous because now he has something real to fight for. Are you going to be a problem?" Victor laughed, a genuine, booming sound. "You are direct. I like that." His expression sobered. "No, Mrs. Volkoff, I won't be a problem. Your husband and I came to an understanding last month. Boundaries were established, territories agreed upon. And seeing him tonight, seeing you both together, I'm reminded that some things are more important than business rivalries, such as family, love, the things that make us human rather than monsters." He raised his glass in a toast. "To your happiness, Mrs. Volkoff. May you survive long enough to enjoy it." He walked away, leaving Maya unsettled but hopeful. Alexander appeared at her side moments later, wrapping an arm around her waist. "What did Victor say to you?" "That we remind him what's important, that he won't be a problem." Maya leaned into him. "Do you believe him?" "For now, yes. Victor has his own family, a grandson he adores. I think seeing us tonight reminded him that some things aren't worth the cost." Alexander pressed a kiss to her hair, "But we'll stay vigilant, always. Together, together." He smiled down at her. Ready to go home? I believe a certain 7-year-old is waiting up past her bedtime to hear how tonight went. Home. The word filled Maya with warmth. Not the physical house, but the concept, Alexander and Sophie, and the life they were building together. More than ready. They said their goodbyes and left to applause and well wishes that felt genuine. In the car, Alexander kept her hand clasped in his, their fingers intertwined. No regrets? He asked quietly. Maya thought about Derek's garage, about the grinding poverty and constant fear that had defined her life before Alexander. She thought about Sophie thriving in her new school, about her mother's improved care, about the security she now took for granted. But most of all, she thought about Alexander. This complicated, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man who'd given her not just material comfort, but something infinitely more valuable. Hope. Love. A future that stretched beyond mere survival. No regrets, she said firmly. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Alexander lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I love you, Maya Volkov. I love you, too, she smiled. My complicated, impossible, wonderful husband. When they arrived home, Sophie met them at the door in her pajamas, Rosa hovering behind her with an apologetic expression. She insisted on staying up, Rosa explained. How did it go? Sophie demanded. Did you tell everyone you love Mom for real? I did. Alexander crouched down to Sophie's level. I told everyone that your mom is the most important person in my life. Well, he glanced at Maya. Second most important. You're tied for first. Sophie threw her arms around his neck. Does that mean you're really my dad now? For real? Not just pretend? Alexander looked to Maya, who nodded through sudden tears. Yes, Butterfly. If you want me to be, I'm really your dad. For real. Forever? Forever. Sophie squealed and hugged him tighter. Over her head, Alexander met Maya's eyes, and the love she saw there took her breath away. This was real. This was family. This was everything she'd never dared to hope for. And it all started with a debt she couldn't pay, and a dangerous man who'd offered her an impossible deal. Sometimes, Maya thought as she watched her daughter and husband embrace, the most unexpected paths lead to exactly where you're meant to be. 6 months later. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, and Alexander's arm draped across her waist. Somewhere down the hall, she could hear Sophie singing, off-key but enthusiastic, while getting ready for school. They'd renovated the house over the summer, combining Maya's room and Alexander's into a true master suite. Sophie's room had expanded to include a reading nook and a space for the piano she was learning to play. The place felt like a real home now, lived in and loved. Good morning, Mrs. Volkov. Alexander's voice was sleep-rough and made her shiver in the best way. Good morning, Mr. Volkov. She turned in his arms to face him. Ready for another day of running your empire? Only if you're ready for another day of keeping me sane. He kissed her softly. I have a meeting with the city council at 10. The casino project finally got approved. That's wonderful. Maya had learned enough about his businesses, legitimate and otherwise, to understand what a victory this represented. Victor kept his word, then. He did. Turns out having a stable family man image actually helps with these things. Who knew? His tone was teasing, but his eyes were serious. This wouldn't have happened without you, Maya. None of it. We're partners, remember? Your victories are my victories. And yours are mine. He pulled her closer. Speaking of which, Rosa told me you've been working on something? A project? Maya bit her lip. She'd been keeping it secret, wanting to be sure before she said anything. I've been taking online classes, business management. I thought maybe I could help more with your legitimate businesses. The restaurants, the real estate. Give me something to do besides look pretty at events. Alexander's face lit up. Maya, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to make sure I could actually do it first. I haven't been in school in over a decade. She felt suddenly vulnerable. But I'm doing well. Top of my class, actually. Of course you are. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. You're brilliant. I'm so proud of you. Yeah? The validation made her glow. Yeah. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Though I should mention, you don't have to prove anything to me. You could spend your days doing absolutely nothing, and I'd still love you just as much. I know, but I want to contribute. I want to be your partner in every sense. You already are. But he smiled. Still, I'm excited to see what you do with those management skills. Maybe you can finally organize my office. Even I don't know what's in half those filing cabinets. Maya laughed. That sounds like a challenge. It's a plea for help. He checked the clock on the nightstand. We should get up. Sophie needs to be at school in an hour, and I need to review the council proposal before the meeting. But neither of them moved, content to stay wrapped in each other's arms for a few more stolen moments. Alexander, Maya said quietly, thank you. For what? For being brave enough to love me. For making this real. For giving Sophie and me a life I never dreamed we could have. He pulled back to look at her, his expression fierce. You gave me the same thing, Maya. You gave me a reason to be more than just survival and power plays. You gave me a family, a home, a future I actually want to live to see. If anyone should be grateful, it's me. Then let's just agree we're both lucky and leave it at that. Deal. He sealed it with a kiss that quickly deepened into something more, until Sophie's voice cut through their moment. Are you guys coming down for breakfast, or do I have to eat Rose's pancakes all by myself? They broke apart laughing. Alexander called back. We're coming. Don't eat all of them. Too late. I'm a growing child. I need sustenance. Maya shook her head fondly. She's been spending too much time with you. She's picking up your vocabulary. She's smart. She can handle a few big words. Alexander climbed out of bed and extended a hand to Maya. Come on, let's go join our daughter before she decides she needs to eat the entire refrigerator to sustain her growth. Our daughter. The word still made Maya's heart squeeze with joy. She took his hand and let him pull her up, then together they headed downstairs to start another day. Their life wasn't perfect. Alexander's business still had dangerous elements. There were still threats, still complications, still moments when Maya wondered if they'd made the right choices. But they faced it all together. Partners, husband and wife, family. And when Maya looked at Sophie laughing at the breakfast table, at Alexander's warm smile as he poured coffee, at the life they'd built from an impossible beginning, she knew without a doubt that they had. Every risk had been worth it. Every scary decision had led them here. And whatever came next, they would handle it the same way they'd handled everything else. Together. Always together.